Hello.
He's looking very smart. Well, he's not smart. Looking very cheery and
I know.
Casual.
I thought I'd dress as M&S summer catalogue today. Something like that, yeah.
Very good. So, tell us a bit about yourself, about your family, what you do.
So my name's Vince. I am a trainer for a company called Wales Restorative Approaches Partnership. Bit of a mouthful, so it tends to get shortened to RAP, if you ever hear that name. So I am married to Kath, who is at the back, and daughter of Jane and Dave Jones, who are also hiding at the back. I've got 2 kids. Cohen, who I think has probably run out into the kids club. Very excited this morning. And then Autumn, who may be in kids club. Not sure. And they're great. Super kids. So I used to be a secondary school teacher, and I came across something called restorative approaches. And I always share this. I wasn't a fan of it to begin with. And so I entered into teaching thinking that to get the kids to behave, to get them to listen, I need to tell them off more. And that will keep them in line. Compliance is the end goal here. And I then went on this restorative approaches training. Wasn't a fan because in my mind, it was all of this soft, fluffy, flowery stuff that, do you know what? They teach you to listen to kids, and I'm not interested in listening to them. They need to listen to me, because that's the problem with kids nowadays. And then this journey began over a year, and I realized, turns out I've kind of got the wrong end of the stick. Went through a bit of a journey and continue to do so, and now deliver that training in all sorts of different sectors, whether it's education, housing, criminal justice, businesses, workplace, private businesses, because it's all about relationships and trying to prevent conflict in the first place. So I guess that kind of sums up what I do now. I do a mix of things. I train people how to do this. I train people how to develop emotional intelligence in their children, things like that. But I also mediate conflict. So bring in people together, whether that's 2, 3, 4, multiple people who can't find a way forward, and I support them to do that. So I don't fix their problems because I'm not the person with the answers. I support other people to find the solutions for them. However, sometimes we get things that present as very low-level issues. So I've had one case that ended up at our door. Now, for it to get to that point, it's got to have gone through multiple managers, HR, people, possibly even the bosses. And it was presented as, I don't like the way my colleague clicks their pen. So we have that kind of stuff, and then all the way through to, I'm saying that this person is categorically bullying me. The more that I do this work, it doesn't really matter what the presenting issue is. It boils down to the same stuff coming up time and time again, which are things like, do you know what, I just don't feel valued as a person in this role. I don't feel recognized. The fact that they are willing to click their pen like that suggests that they don't respect me as a person, because who on earth would click their pen? I've had another one of, they don't like the way that the person types. It's just too noisy. Of course, they're not really complaining about that. They're complaining about the fact that I think that the other person doesn't think about me or the people in this office. So I don't feel valued. I feel invisible in this relationship, because we do a lot of family mediation as well. Mediation between parents who might have relationship issues. Mediation between parents and children because their relationship has just broken down. And the concept of feeling like you just don't matter in that relationship is probably the primary issue that comes out. But most people don't understand that.
Like that.
And I guess that's why emotional intelligence comes into it, because a big part of it is just being much more self-aware. And one of the, I guess, the thing that gets thrown out a lot about relationships is, you know, if you ask, what's the core component of a good relationship, people will say good communication. And I absolutely agree, that is huge and it's a massive part of it. But underneath that, the bit that gets missed the most is the ability to regulate one's own emotions, to be aware of yourself, what makes you tick, how other people might perceive that, and the willingness to listen, not just to what someone's saying, but listen to try and really understand what they're trying to communicate with you. And that's the bit that breaks down the fastest.
People pay for this, don't they?
They do.
A
lot of money.
A lot of money?
Not to me, unfortunately. I guess the fundamentals are probably similar in all the different settings that I work in, but specifically in a workplace setting, certainly if any of you work in business or are managers, the best thing that you can do is create team where the top priority is not output or outcomes, but the feeling of psychological safety. That I can make a mistake and I can be honest and own up to it, and that nobody holds that against me, but just goes, okay, how can we fix that? And that starts with the manager or whoever is in charge of that team demonstrating that. And there's a really good quote that I often share within the training, which is, you can't talk your way out of something that you spent years behaving your way into. And often you doesn't represent you as a person, but what position you might hold. So how many of you have had managers in the past where they say a really good thing, but everything that they do says the very opposite, and you don't trust them? And if there's no trust, then you won't own up to things and you won't look for ways to improve things. And so one of the, I guess, the ways to do that is to put in systems that promote that. Most people, when it comes to relationships, wing it. They just use what we call common sense. But of course, common sense isn't common amongst everyone. It's just what you think should happen. And unless you have a clear direction of where a group of people should go, how can you hold anyone to account? You know, even words like the interpretation of what respect is in a relationship. I might have a different interpretation to Paul, and if we don't have any agreement on it, I can never say, do you know what, Paul, I felt a little disrespected there. And Paul can just go, I don't agree. Correct. Because we don't have the same interpretation of these words. Yeah. So if we don't have the same interpretation, it's very hard to build on a structure and a strategy to do that. So we start with the basics of just, let's define what we mean by the core values that we have as people, core values that we have as an organization, and go from there. I will say on that, It is much easier to do this professionally than it is personally, because often you give all of your best. Certainly if any of you are teachers, you'll know this. You give all of your best to the kids, and then you go home. Well, the word expectation comes in, doesn't it? Yes. How many of you have ever said something along the lines of, do you know what, I expect better of you. I don't expect to have to deal with this when I get home. I've already done with this for 6-7 hours of the day. And so, yes, conceptually, I know what to do with my own kids, but it doesn't always happen.